Thanks. So James, yes, we are going to talk about our proof of value approaches. So you have seen during these 3 events a lot of content about the MDM, but how do we start if you are interested from that? So what we do at MarkLogic is an approach called proof of value. And this helps you to answer to this kind of question because as you know your business, you think you know your data, so you think it makes sense, of course, to integrate all this data to master and valorize the data silos. But you have to maybe find a budget for it. You have to deal with your line of business. And it's hard if you're staying only theoretical, to quantify the value to integrate this data, to serve which kind of application with which kind of data. So maybe you have this kind of question, and it's often very complex to explain this kind of value to line of business if you want to grab some budget for it. They're not spending budget on MDM, they are spending budget to improve their applications. And of course, MDM is just an enabler for that. So you have to link all the dots. And maybe you don't know as well very well your data because you know your application, where you are storing your customer data, your employee data, your parts data maybe, but not the data in itself. And on the other hand, you don't want to over-specify as well your project because it takes time, and you want to start fast, to start small, gradually, to improve your MVP step by step, but keep it agile because things can change between the day 1 and day 30, for instance. So this is to answer all these questions that MarkLogic is pushing what we call a POV approach, so for POV for proof of value. And this is really an exercise that we can do with our customers to prove the value, the real business value of integrating your data and consume this data in a sample business case, working on a very sample of your real data. And it's important in a time box approach, meaning that we know when we start, we know when we finish, and we change the scope according to these constraints. And of course, the idea is not doing that on our side, is to doing that with your team, because at the end of the exercise, you don't get just a demonstration, just an illustration, but this is everything that you need to valorize your use cases. And this is also people organization. How do you organize yourself to find the right data, to connect the data to a data hub, and to master it, and to work with all your team, all your IT and business organization to make it a success? So this is ambitious, but this is what we do usually with many of our customers and prospects, actually. So we work together to integrate and curate, again, a sample of your data on a sample business case and value before, of course, if you like it, trigger a real project. So again, this is something that we run in a very strict schedule. So this is usually something that run between 4 to 6 weeks maximum. 6 weeks maximum. We don't want to go larger than that. But during this very strict schedule, we have a very flexible scope, meaning that we start with some features in mind, and it change. Like any project at scale, you change your mind, and it is totally fine. And this is the value of such an agile tools like the one that we can provide at MarkLogic. So it's very iterative, it's very collaborative. We are doing that with you. We meet you every time. And at the end, again, we are delivering 3 key assets. The first one is a live reusable illustration. So yes, it is a demonstration on your data. We demo that we can build something in such a time on the data you provide to us. But this is also feedback on how you can run this project with your team. And this is also, of course, a reference architecture in your context, as well as a project estimate. And to start it, we need basically to agree, of course, on the first scope. So that means anticipating the POV value and the description of it, and what you expect to get from a value from the POV and from MarkLogic, of course, in this POV. We need to agree on all the logistics and on the schedules. Again, this is a very tight exercise, so we need to be agreed on that before, align with the team, and have the data and the team available, of course, before we start. And again, you have some example here of some customer when we do it before going on a real project. So if just to illustrate it, if I take some example of the question that we ask you if you want to trigger a POV, we take this kind of schema that you have seen along the 3 events we run together on the MDM, but we need with you to define what are the data sources and to list them. What is a target data model, maybe very simple with some ontology and some link between business entities. What are the data curation you want to run and what are the data consuming application you want to serve? Answering to these 4 questions, you have a good starting point. And then we can go more in details and say, okay, well, the data. Okay, let's say that we want to identify 4 data sources, one for the physical person that you have coming from a mainframe. We need to know someone in your organization and know how to explain the data, what is inside this data. We need to have the size for the POV, let's say, I don't know, 2 gigabytes, and the size for the target project. And the same if we want to integrate as well some customer segments. If we want to integrate some, let's say, open data to integrate some address reference data like Vaudoise did if you was there in the first event, for instance. And maybe you want as well to integrate some email in your data because, you know, if you are talking about customer data, the inbound or outbound email are very interesting stuff. So maybe you want to integrate MS Exchange as a data source with half of a gigabyte of data. But at the end, of course, in the project, you know the size. So this is the kind of discussion we have. Different data sources, a sample of the data for the POV, people that we can talk to understand the data, what is inside, or we can link the data together, of course, and run some deduplication scenarios. Then we discuss about the schedule. Again, we run it between 4 to 6 weeks usually. So we agreed on a start date, on an end date, on multiple workshops in between. So let's say a weekly workshop where we meet all the POV team and we say where we are, but also some very thematic workshop where we can speak with focused discussion on with line of business, for instance, with architects, with infrastructure guys. And so we can answer to all the questions, but again, in a very strict and very approved before schedule. And then at the end, again, you not only got this kind of demonstration, so that means that we can build the UI, consume the data, show you all the curation process we have seen before with Frank and Gary, but you have also how you can organize around this. How it was difficult to get the data, how it was difficult to discuss with this line of business to get the approval. And again, this is really a sample of a real project, and so you can get the value from it and have your budget to make it real in your organization. This is what we call a POV, proof of value, and we are very keen to start such a process with you, discussing with our team.